Big show coming up, Hammer. We have all the fallout from the playoff series.
Grand final time, Jojo, and we've got John, Casey and I give our selections.
Plus, Jock Landale taking his opportunity with the Rockets. Let's go.
This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Yes, another week and more drama in the basketball world, Hammer, but we finally have our championship series decided.
How good is this? You're going to love grand final time, and you see the big-time players step up, and it's going to be good to be able to break it all down today, but I love it.
No, exactly right. We're going to deep dive into the Grand Final Series. We'll unpack the playoff series. We've got NBA, WNBL as well. Big show coming up. It's all thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback Store. All right, time for Points Made with John Casey. Case, long time no see. I'm loving the backdrop from our hotel room in Perth after Game 3. We'll start with that series, just given that we're there and you were covering it. Tassie, what impressed you so much to make them book that spot in the championship series?
Joe, I should point out for my wife's benefit that we are in separate rooms here, maybe the same hotel. But yeah, look, from top to bottom, Tasmania have been outstanding, and it goes right back to everyone on that island, the organisation in the front office, the way they conduct themselves. They had a big lot of travelling fans in Perth last night to support them. The support that they get from kids writing to them before every game, it's just magnificent. What they have created in Tasmania is the model for every franchise in any sport going forward forever. But on the court, they just outplayed Perth last night. They went there confident in their own abilities. They had more depth. I think they had a better game plan. They decided Bryce Cotton wasn't going to beat them. They restricted Perth to 3 of 13 from deep for the game, and no three-point hits in the last half. It's their lowest return in 12 years. Now, that's a game plan. They stopped Bryce Cotton, and Perth couldn't find another way to get past them. And they have so many contributors, Tassie. When you look at Doyle, who's MVP quality. McVeigh is now playing and being touted as an NBA prospect. Sean McDonald, most improved player in the competition. Crawford hasn't got going the last 2 games, and they've been able to mask that. They've got Magnay. They've got Marcus Lee. They've got guys coming off the bench that can have an impact. It's just a beautiful thing to watch. Full credit to Tassie. I can't believe bookmakers had them 15-1 and second bottom in terms of betting at the start of the season. They've made those people eat their words, and I think they can beat Melbourne.
Well, you've articulated it perfectly as usual, Case, because I agree with everything you've said. I mean, what Scott Roth has done to be able to create a system and then go and get the players to fit that system has been incredible. They're like a machine. The way they play the percentages, they're disciplined. You can tell they play for each other. They've got guys that step up. And Doyle right now is playing the best basketball he's ever played since we've seen him in Australia. He's stepped up. He's wanted to be the best player on that team, and he's been able to do it as scoring-wise, but he's been able to do it at the right times and not be selfish while he's doing it. And I tell you, I said at the start of the year, and people scoffed at me, Magnay, when healthy, is the best big man in the competition. That's an advantage for them over Melbourne United. I agree. I'm picking Tasmania to be able to win the championship from here. I think it's going to be a great battle. I think it's going to be a tight battle because they're a different opponent. They're playing against the team in Melbourne United that are very similar to themselves. Dean Vickerman's done a great job of creating a system and getting disciplined players that play for the team. And Matthew Dellavedova has been outstanding for Melbourne United. He's been their best player. And they are a similar style of players and teams. So this is going to be a great battle. Jack McVeigh playing his best basketball. You mentioned McDonald. Lee has been great. They just do it from their best player to their bench players. So I can't wait for this. Interested to hear what you think about Melbourne, though, Case.
Well, look, there's no doubt that United, and I've said this all along, the championship is theirs to lose because they have all the resources, they have the deepest team, and they have one of the best coaches in the competition. So I certainly aren't writing Melbourne off. They're going to be hard to beat. I'm certainly not going to be surprised if Melbourne win the championship because they've shown all year they're the best team. But right now, when you come into this game, Tassie won 7 out of their last 8. And Melbourne, yes, they have that great record of having never lost back-to-back games this season. But against Tasmania in the regular season, well, Tassie won 2 of the 3 and 1 in Melbourne. And the most recent game was about 8 weeks ago, and they won by 21. They handed Melbourne their biggest defeat of the year. Admittedly, Joe Luala-Chul didn't play in that game, and they were out-rebounded significantly, Melbourne. But you look at what Tassie are doing, and you look at what Melbourne are doing, and I agree with you. Delhi is the man now in Melbourne, and I think he has to go to Paris on what he's done. In my eyes, he has to go to Paris now, particularly that your good friend Ben Simmons is no longer available. Well, it seems that way. But I just think that if I'm pinned down to a selection at the moment, I think Tassie are just doing their job a little bit better than Melbourne are at the moment. But you're spot on 100%. What a series this is going to be.
Well, I think Golding is not going to like playing against Tassie. He needs space. Scott Roth is one of the master coaches of being able to put together game plans to be able to take the best players out of the game. They're disciplined. Guys like McDonald coming in, they'll make life really difficult for Golding. And he's going to have to make difficult shots through the whole series because there's not going to be any open ones. Now, he's capable of doing it, but it's tough to do it over and over again with somebody in your face, no transition points. I think Travis is going to be really important in this series because I think he's a really good matchup for Jack McVeigh. I think Travis has probably been able to take his game to another level. I think he's been a benefactor of playing in a system like Dean Vickerman's where it's all about discipline, play your role. He's great at the pick and pop and attack again. He's always on the offensive board. So it's going to make it important. I think Huck Porty is going to play a valuable role because I think that Magnay and Lee have got the upper hand on JLA. I think they're better players than JLA. I think they're more consistent. I think they're tougher to be able to get this done. So I think Porty becomes important. Clark's going to have to come off the bench and make shots. He has to, because I think it's going to be tough for some of those other players. Daly's been able to make more points, at a better percentage in ways that we haven't seen him be aggressive in the past. So he's going to be important to be able to continue to do that, especially off the dribble. We've seen him being able to get to the basket. He looks like he's in good shape. He's fit. He's strong. He's got belief. So this grand final series is going to be such a good battle. I'm glad both these teams made it because they are the most disciplined teams. They play the hardest. They play together, and I think they play the right way. So can't wait for it, Jojo.
It's going to be awesome. We obviously know both of these two teams are extremely talented. Both of them are deep. How much of this series, though, is going to come down to Dean Vickerman and Scott Roth?
Well, look, they're both tremendous coaches, and that was the point I was about to make, Joe, that they're two of the best coaches in the competition. That go about it in a different way, but certainly we've seen Dean Vickerman adjust the way he approaches things now. It's almost like he's adjusted toward a Scott Roth, just being relaxed, being calm. I think it impressed me in the huddle there last night for the Tasmania JackJumpers that Scott Roth, he was so composed, and he talks a lot about poise, and he allows his team. Milton Doyle had more to say during the timeouts than the coach did, and at one stage they started to talk over one another, and Scott Roth actually pulled back and said, no, you go first. And I thought, how good is this coaching from Scott Roth? He knows what he wants, the message he wants to get across. If what he's hearing from the players is what he's thinking, let them say it. Let them own it. Let them be engaged with it. And then as they leave the huddle, he has his last word that he wants to get in. It's just inspiring coaching to watch at close range. And Dean Vickerman, I think, is likewise. He takes a lot on board, will allow his players to have input. But look, I wouldn't bet against Scott Roth. I think he's the best coach in the competition. And he's shown that, as Hammer said, just with the game plan and the way he's going to think his way through, how he's going to stop Golding, what he's going to do to contain Delhi, and what he's going to get his team to do that's going to enable them to get into a winning position. Because that's what you need to do, is get into a winning position in the fourth quarter. And as we've seen right throughout these semi-final series, both teams in front in the last quarter, it's, who can hold their nerve? So it's a spectacular, mouth-watering clash that we've got to look forward to.
Well, I actually think that Melbourne series was more finals-like, or what they're going to have to expect, than what Tasmania played against Perth. Because Perth's defense is not good. They gave up way too many easy points. Illawarra didn't do that in the series against Melbourne. And I thought Melbourne had to play their way through, had to play big possessions because they were so competitive, the Illawarra Hawks. I think Dean Vickerman, I thought he looked a little bit concerned and worried at different stages during that. And he had to coach his way out of it. He had to have these big players make big shots at big times and get big stops at big times to be overcome that Illawarra Hawks team. So I think they're going to be better than what they were at the start of the series, and that's what's going to make it an intriguing game. I think the series is a flip of the coin, but I'm leaning towards Tassie.
Leaning towards Tassie, even though Melbourne United have been top of the table all season, they've not lost 2 games in a row, and they have home court advantage.
Yeah, well, I mean, all those things are really relevant, Jojo, and there'll be a lot of people that think Melbourne's going to win it for all those reasons. And they're a quality team. It's no disrespect to Melbourne. I just think that at different stages during the seasons, you go on different runs. And I think this run that Tasmania's gone on, they were clinical against the Illawarra Hawks at home at the start of in the play-in series. And I think they've just brought that momentum. They've got such belief right now. Now, Melbourne United do too, and they're pros. They've got veterans. They've got guys that have been there and done it before. But I just feel like this is slightly going to go in the favour of Tasmania. They are going to be hungry. They've got that island on their back. They believe. It means so much more when you're playing in Tassie, because all of Tasmania, it means so much. United have won championships, and those guys individually are going to want to win it. It means a lot to them. But gee whiz, this is going to be massive if Tasmania can get over the line.
Well, they play with no fear, Hammer. And Joe, a good point to remember is that 2 years ago in the JackJumpers' first season in the competition, Melbourne finished the regular season champions with a 20-8 record, exactly the same as this year. They played Tassie in a semi-final series, and Tassie went to Melbourne and won the deciding game 3 and knocked out the number 1 seed. Admittedly, Chris Golding didn't play in that game because of a calf injury he sustained in game 2, but Tassie have done that, and that will give them no fear about getting this job done again. It won't be a sweep, but like Hammer, I'm just leaning towards Tassie because they're in better form at the moment. As I said, they've won 7 of their last 8, and don't discount Melbourne, but I'm reminded of last year's Grand Final Series and the Kings and the New Zealand Breakers, remembering that both games were won by the road team in the first 2. So it's one of those things. There's going to be nerves. It's going to be a big occasion. And even experienced players like Delhi and Golding, those players can still get a little hype when it's a grand final and a championship. So who can control their emotions the best is going to be important as well. And we know that the JackJumpers fans are going to be all over it. Yes, they'll be smaller in number, but they'll be louder in voice. And good luck trying to get a win on the road down there, Melbourne.
Well, you mentioned they're going to be smaller in number, Case. I feel like this grand final series is Melbourne or Victoria versus the rest of Australia.
Well, I tell you what it is. It's Tasmania versus the world, Joe. That's what it is.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it was the same when Tassie played against the Kings a couple of years ago. Sydney were up against the rest of Australia. I almost feel like the way Tassie play, it endears themselves to be everyone's second favourite team. So if your team doesn't make it, you just feel for them. You like the way they go about their business. They're hard, but they're fair. Maybe take away Jack McVeigh with that little shoulder drop that I think, everyone was talking about. But
it was the people's elbow, Hammer.
That's right. So, you like it. Jack McVeigh's a character. It's a really good story. And very rarely do you see expansion teams have the sort of success that they've had from day one. And make no mistake about it, it's from Scott Roth, the way he's set up the program and the culture he's developed from day one, and the way he's recruited players that fit that culture. They're fantastic and they deserve success.
Well, cannot wait for it. Game 1 on Sunday. We'll be back next week to review that. Look ahead to Game 2, which is Friday. It's going to be an awesome series, guys. All right, let's get into our starting 5, Hammer. I want to talk about the Rockets. Now, it's now been confirmed that Al Shangoon will be out for the rest of the season, a grade 3 ankle sprain. Luckily, nothing worse. You obviously never want to see a player go down injured, but it is an opportunity for Jock Landale. He's already gone and had a load more minutes. He's producing as well. The early signs are good for him, for the Boomers. There's a positive to take from this.
Well, there is. And, the positive is that it sounds like Jock Landale has been doing the work because when you're not playing minutes, and I know I've been there, you sit at the end of the bench, you're waiting for opportunities. You get in for short periods of game when the game's over. It can become frustrating, and you've got to put the time in. You've got to do the work because you just never know when your opportunity is going to be presented. And it's been presented for him, and at a perfect time that he's been able to stand up and have a serious influence on their team in a positive way. I know his plus minus the other day was like plus 20 in 22 minutes or something like that. So really good stuff. Great that he's going to build his confidence, and certainly good that he's going to get some form up before the Olympics, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. They're 11th in the West, 5 games behind 10th, so won't be making the playoffs anytime soon. But as you said, great for him and the Boomers in the lead up to the Olympics. The WNBL Grand Final Series. Now, we're recording this again. It's Thursday. Game 2 is tonight. But just let's touch on the leagues. They absolutely pumped the Flyers.
WNBL, it's a secret, isn't it? It's a secret.
You had me.
Shh,
Like, what happened?
don't talk about it. The league won't promote it. It's only the grand final. Let's schedule the games on the same day as NBL games, so general basketball fans don't necessarily watch it. Shh.
It's not been scheduled well. We know that. We will get to that in just a second because it has been a problem. But a word on the Lynx, you've been on their bandwagon from the start.
Yes.
They pumped the Flyers in game 1. We essentially feel like after tonight we come back next week and the Lynx will be champions.
It was funny. I had a conversation with somebody the other day after Southside played so well. And Lauren Jackson, kudos to Lauren Jackson with the way she's playing right now. She looks fit. She looks strong. She's really carried that team. After they beat the Boomers, this guy said, "Oh, mate, they're going to be way too good for Perth." I'm like, Perth's a different beast. Perth are going to run you all day. And that's exactly what they did. Atwell, 9 threes, unbelievable in game 1. McDonald, I've said she's the best player in the league. Maley's playing good basketball. Everyone's playing their roles. I just think they're going to be too strong. Now, Southside, they've got pride, so they're going to try and come back. They're going to try and even the series. But I think Perth are the deserved winners of this year's championship. And I stand to be corrected because, again, the game's tonight. But I just wish more people were watching the women's basketball and appreciating the sort of talent that we've got here in Australia for the league.
No, exactly right. If it does go to game 3, it's on Sunday. I genuinely hope that it does not clash with game 1 of the Grand Final Series of the NBL. Some potential good news, though, just in regards to this and women's basketball in this country. Larry Kesselman is getting closer to buying the WNBL.
Wow, how long have I been talking about Larry? Please take over the WNBL, because he came in after Basketball Australia had run the NBL into the ground. I mean, it was virtually a glorified Siebel, and they were giving away licenses because no one wanted to join the league or run a team in the league. It was difficult. And now I feel like the WNBL is in a similar boat. There's only 8 teams. There's talk of Melbourne, not having any buyers. They need to sell, not having any buyers. But if Larry Kesselman comes in and buys this league, it's going to be great for everybody involved. It'll be good for players. It'll be great for their profiles. People will know about it, just like what they've done with the NBL 1. I think the profile in the NBL 1 state leagues is way higher than the WNBL because they've got people that are really promoting the best players and putting the highlights out and talking it up. You know what's going on. So fingers crossed that Larry comes through and gets this done and the BA don't make it too difficult.
You mentioned that the Boomers are up for sale. You've got some details on potential buyers from Geelong.
Well, our good friends at News Corp have reported that there's a Geelong consortium that have put their hands up and have made steps to be able to buy this franchise. And it sounds like from that story that the WNBL wants to keep Melbourne in Melbourne, but I'm not sure why they would. I think they've got Southside there. Geelong, after playing in Geelong for 3 years for the Supercats, it is a great city. It's continued to evolve. There's so many people down there. It's a uni town now. The coastal side of Geelong with all the people holidaying down there as well. It's a big city. It's a big thing. They've got a great stadium, and I think it would be the perfect place to have a WNBL franchise, and I hope they get it done.
All right, one more before we keep moving. Parker Jackson Cartwright has signed with Galatasaray for the rest of this season and for next season, which means he won't be in the NBL next season. It's a shame for us. We loved having him in the league this season, but he also earned himself that payday. So congrats to him. But it's almost just a reminder of the money that is over in Europe that the NBL can't compete with, and a reminder that, we're lucky when these guys are playing here.
We are. And he was sensational. He was my favourite player to watch for the entire season. He was incredible. He's earned this payday. And you're right, Joe. I mean, he's playing on a mid-range team. Galatasaray used to be a powerhouse in the EuroLeague and in Turkey. Now they're mid-level team, but he would still be making big money. American dollars, they pay the tax for you. It's all after-tax dollars. Very difficult that any team in Australia would come close to being able to compete with the sort of money that he's getting there. And that's why his agent would have locked in for the rest of this season and next year as well. So congrats to him. Good job. Now a team needs to find the next player like him.
All right, Hammer, we previewed the Grand Final Series, Melbourne United and Tassie earlier in the show with John Casey. Now let's talk about the losers, the not-so-lucky ones, the Hawks and Perth Wildcats. We'll start with the Hawks. I don't think anyone expected that series to go to 2 overtime games and be so competitive in Game 3. What did you make of that series, and where to next now that the fairy tale's over?
Well, I mean, firstly, you can't help but be impressed, Joe, with everything the Illawarra Hawks have done, considering where they've come from. I think you have to put it into context of where they started. And, to take Melbourne United, I tipped a sweep. That didn't happen. I'm sitting there watching it and saying, this is a really close series. And a few things go a different way. Shots get made, free throws, things like that. And they're seriously contesting for a grand final, which would have been an unbelievable result. But positive things are happening. I think the biggest tick of approval is Justin Tatum. I think that, he's proven to be a very good coach. And I think he'll be a better coach next year. I think he'll have a chance to be able to plan. I think he will have learned a lot about the league, about himself, about some of the players, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and he'll have a really good understanding of what he needs to improve and what players he needs to be able to get to take his team to another level. So when they get back to a semi-final, they can go to the next level.
Well, speaking of putting together his own roster, what should JT do in terms of his imports? You've got Tyler Harvey, who has one more season as an import before he is naturalised and becomes an Australian citizen. Do you keep JR? You get the feeling that they definitely do want to keep Gary Clark. What would you be doing if you're in his shoes?
Well, Gary Clark's got to be the first piece they've got to get signed. I mean, he's a star. I think he'll be even better next year when the system's sort of been built around him a little bit more. So I think they have to get him. I don't know whether they've got the budget to do it, but they have to find the money to give themselves a chance to be able to get to the same level. I think Harvey, is an interesting prospect because I think if he's an Australian, obviously he's even more valuable. I think he's got his limitations, but I think that he also plays a valuable role. I think he's a good guy. I think he has a genuine desire to be able to help the team. I think if you get imports like that, then they can really help your program. He's always going to be up and down. Is he going to be the player that comes through in the playoffs? I'm not so convinced, but we've seen him hit big shots along the way as well. I think Robinson's the one that won't be there next year. He's played some good games, but I think he's an average level import at this level. I'm not sure another team would pick him up unless they're on a lower budget. Then maybe they try and keep him around. That's just my opinion on him.
All right, well, positive signs for the Hawks moving forward. What about for the Wildcats?
With the amount of talent they've arguably got as much talent or more talent than any team in the league. I'm just not sure that they fit. There were some things in that last game that were surprising. You saw Bryce Cotton just not getting enough shots. Now, Tassie were good defensively, but that comes down to your system. That was the same problem they had at the start of the season where Bryce wasn't getting the opportunities. Then they changed everything around. I felt like the system changed. I felt like the players and coaches' mindset changed. And then they get to the most important part of the season, and they're not running things. It looked like Bryce Cotton was going up to John Rillie in the third and fourth quarter saying, mate, I've only had one shot. Like, what's going on? You got players spraying it up. Pinder making 5 threes in the first game was the worst thing that could have happened to them because now all of a sudden he thinks he's a 3-point shooter. It's like, mate, it's not your game. It's not what you do. Get the ball to Bryce. It has to be focused on Bryce. But offense wasn't always the problem for the Perth Wildcats. They just gave up too many points. They bled easy points. They didn't look like they had the same care factor for most of the season defensively as what they did offensively. We know when you get to the playoffs, you've got to dig down. You've got to get stops. You've got to get possession. You've got to be passionate. It's all about desire when it comes to defense. And they did not show that they had that. So they're not going to blow this thing up. And I think John Riley's probably a better coach at the end of the season than he was at the start of the season. So people questioning whether he's going to be there or not, I think you can shush that up now. Riley will be there, and I think he'll make the necessary adjustments, and they're going to have better selections on people that are going to complement Bryce, as far as playing a role. And I think that's what they did when they brought Hiram Harris into the lineup. He's a bench player, but he played a valuable role because he wasn't worried about scoring, and he ended up being a really good addition for them.
We obviously know Alex Sarr won't be there next season. Are there any other changes within the Wildcats that are standing out to you, at least at this point?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because when you look at the players individually, Usher's a good player. Doolittle's a good player. They're the imports for where they can make obvious changes. But were they the right fit? Were there areas behind the scenes and in the locker rooms where they felt like they needed more? I'm not sure. John Riley and the coaching and the administration will know that. They've got big budgets to be able to make these changes. I'm not sure that Keanu Pinder is a player on a big team trying to win a championship. I think Keanu Pinder was perfect in Cairns. He was unbelievably athletic. He had the freedom to do what he wanted. He didn't look the same player when it comes to the same sort of structure and having to be able to get stops and play within systems and being accountable for actions. It doesn't look like he's as comfortable and enjoys his basketball. He looked like he didn't enjoy the whole process. Like, that's the time you've got to enjoy it. That's the money time of the season that you've worked hard to be able to try and win a championship. You're jumping out of your skins. He didn't look like that at all at any stage during the playoffs to me, Keanu Pinder. So, he's contracted on a big contract. He'll be there, but I'm not sure he's the right fit.
Yeah, conflicting reports about Keanu Pinder and his well-being throughout that entire series as well. So that was interesting to potentially try and get to the bottom of. But either way, look, they were one game away from the Grand Final Series. It's so important for the NBL that the Perth Wildcats are there and competing, and it feels like they'll be back next season.
No doubt. They'll adjust their roster, and away we go. That's what makes this league so intriguing, knowing that Gorgians at the Sydney Kings, they're going to be better. The Hawks will be better. Brisbane's on the way up. It's you think Southeast Melbourne's going to make big changes. Watch out for what happens there. So Adelaide are going to be better now under Scott Ninnis taking the reins. So, the league is intriguing. It's unbelievably competitive, and you've got to love it.
5.
Jackson Davis, over Victor Wembanyama.
These are your Hoops highlights thanks to Boost Mobile, and it's Jackson Davis taking on Wemby to get us going.
4.
With 9. Fox. He ejected on Connaughton. And it made De'Aaron mad, and he's taking it out on the rim. Kings on the 7-0 run. We'll be back after the timeout.
3.
Jokic and Porzingis, he spins off him, miss it. Oh! Aaron Gordon, the follow jam. Woo! Look at this highlight, the best of the night.
Well, he's backing him down. You see Jaylen Brown leaves Gordon to come to help on the shot. Gordon follows right to the rim. And a little bit of excitement there.
2.
Seconds before this one's done. AJ Green takes it back. Oh, wow, climbing the ladder and something to talk about Ajax.
Oof. He just climbed up on the shoulders of Kessler. Was that Kessler?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
1.
Here comes Colin, go screen. Domas, give me that, the hammer! Yeah! Domantas Sabonis with the defensive play of the game. Domantas Sabonis.
The man has 31.
Sabonis for the win, wrapping up your hoops highlights thanks to Boost Mobile. Well, that's all we've got time for. As always, thanks to Code Sports, Boost Mobile, and the Throwback Store. Thanks to you guys for watching as well. Hammer, very quickly before we go, I know you've picked Tassie for the Grand Final Series, but do they get game 1 on Sunday?
Close one. I'm just going to stick with them, and I'm not going to pick who's going to win each game, Jojo. But it's going to be competitive.
Oh, come on,
but I'm on Tassie. Who are you on? I didn't even ask you. Who are you on?
Well, I'm on Melbourne United, I think. I don't think you go through the entire season top of the table. I know they had a tight series with the Hawks, but you get the feeling they can put their foot down at any time. I want a great series, first of all. That's all I want.
Well, we're going to get that. We already know if it's anything like the semi-final series, we are going to have a great grand final series, and it's been a fantastic year. So looking forward to it, Jojo.
No, exactly right. All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Catch you then.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sports.